Saturday due to a system coming in from the southwest. And the temperature is Saturday around 60. Showers and thunderstorms Saturday night in the 40s. And more clouds, more showers and thunderstorms planned for Sunday. The high Sunday, very close to 50. We'll keep you updated. Your life, your music. We're KLEK 102.5 FM.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. At least 40 people have died after a plane crash in Nepal. It's reported the UK government may be close to publicly accusing Russia of being behind a nerve agent attack on a former spy. The EU says it will stand up to bullies on trade as US President Trump presses ahead with tariffs on steel and aluminium imports, and tributes from across the entertainment world are being paid to British comedy legend Sir Ken Dodd, who's died at the age of 90.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday to you. I hope that you're having a great start to your day. Today, you're tuned in to Community Conversations with your host, Quabila Jones, and my very special guest, and I'm sorry I forgot to ask how to pronounce, is it Deirdre? Deirdre. Okay, Dr. Deirdre Cooper Owens from the City University of New York. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
She is going to be participating in a lecture on the campus of Arkansas State University today, and we're going to get into more of the time and the location of the lecture. But first I want to get into some introduction of Dr. Owens. Should have had this pulled up, I apologize. All right, and also we're going to be talking about her book. It's called Medical Bondage, Race, Gender, and the Origins of American Gynecology. All right. So I apologize.
While you're doing that, I'm going to, for the live stream audience, place the book here next to me. So
okay.
You can see that.
All right. So, okay, my phone is loading. Here we go. All right. So Dr. Owens is an assistant professor of history at Queens College, CUNY. She holds a Master's of Arts degree in African American Studies from Clark Atlanta University and a PhD in history from the University of California, UCLA, where she also receives a certificate in women's studies. Dr. Owens has received numerous awards and fellowships, including residential, postdoctoral fellowship at the Carter G. Woodson Institute for African American and African Studies at the University of Virginia, and an American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists fellowship to explore medicine, gender, and the historical influence of race on each of these categories. Her forthcoming book, Medical Bondage, Race, Gender, and the Origins of American Gynecology, is under contract with the University of Georgia Press, Race, and Atlantic World Series. Professor Dr. Cooper Owens has taught at a number of colleges and universities where she has focused on classes that emphasized United States slavery, race, gender, and medicine. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let me switch this so everyone can see who you are. And it will hold up your book so they can see that as well. Okay, this camera here.
Here it is.
All right, so, and then we'll tell people how to get their hands on it so they can do more reading for themselves. All right, so let's get into a little bit about your background, educational and your professional background. Are you a gynecologist or...
No, I often joke I am a doctor,
okay,
but I'm not a medical doctor. I really stumbled into the history of medicine, and it was during my third year of my PhD program, and I needed to get a dissertation topic. I kept flip-flopping and took a class where I had to, in fact, it was on the history of science, I was so not interested in the steam engine revolution in England. And so I remember emceeing a program for my undergraduate president. I went to an HBCU, Bennett College, in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Janetta Cole was the president at that time. I was going to be emceeing a program, and she and Beverly Guy Sheftel had just written a book.
Okay.
Literally less than a paragraph. There were about 2 or 3 sentences about this guy, Dr. James Marion Sims, who had done experimental work on enslaved women, and he was considered the father of gynecology, of American gynecology. I'd never heard of him, and actually became quite intrigued. And so as I started to do more research, I realized just how connected slavery was to this branch of medicine, and literally a dissertation was born. And so I had to delve into understanding medicine.
Wow.
And so I took classes and TA'd and got the fellowship at ACOG, which is literally a site for obstetricians and gynecologists. But it really was a trial by fire, just kind of putting myself in the field and learning as much as I could.
What are some of the most profound things you learned while doing your research?
That, I am a historian of slavery as well, that there's hardly any industry in this country that slavery hasn't impacted or influenced in some way. And so often, when I teach history of medicine classes and history of medicine and race, I'll ask my students, how many of you have heard of a pap smear? I mean, most people have, or
Okay.
if you're a woman, you've gone through a pap smear exam. And I said, that duckbill speculum, that was perfected on the bodies of enslaved women. Understanding C-sections happened because of the experimental work on enslaved women. And so even the first abdominal-based surgery happened because of experimental work on enslaved women. And so when people start to realize that even George Washington, the whole lore about him having wooden teeth, his teeth, the fake teeth, the dentures that he wore were the teeth of enslaved people. And so literally there is, there are not a lot of industries within the medical profession that developed in this country that slavery hasn't impacted in some way.
Do you feel that it's not discussed enough because people may not want to face the harsh, dark truths of the matter?
I think so. Slavery, makes some people really angry just learning about it because it was so brutal and dehumanizing. And then others feel a sense of guilt. And so what I have to tell folks is none of us were born in the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries or the 16th centuries. And so if we have to learn about oftentimes the mythologies around the founding of America, then we need to learn all of American history. Another part is I think people just don't know. Like I didn't know. My mother read my book a few months ago. And she called me, and of course, like most parents, she's like, "You deserve a Pulitzer." And I was like, "Okay, so that won't happen, probably, but thank you." And she has a degree in professional biology, and she was just shocked. She was like, "I never knew this taking classes in college about medicine and science."
So do you feel that some colleges and universities are doing their students that are studying medicine or science in particular a disservice by not introducing this into their curriculum?
Yeah, I do. The wonderful thing about the publication of this book is that I have been able to engage with students, particularly those in medical schools.
Okay.
I've been able to engage with local midwives, so everywhere I do talks, whether it's El Paso, Texas, Houston, Texas. I've been, in New York where I live. I am always quite happy to be able to have conversations with midwives, with doulas, with nurse practitioners, with medical doctors who teach. So there is at least a sense from the medical community and all members that knowing the history, being able to contextualize why certain communities might have a fear of going to the doctor is not just rooted in ignorance, but it's rooted in something deeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. If you have any questions or comments for Dr. Owens, please give us a call at 277-1080, or drop us a message on our Facebook live stream. I just want to give a shout out to those that are watching. Of course, Dr. Branch, Sheree Stone's Branch, thank you for tuning in. My friend Brent Butler, and also just want to make a correction. The book was published in 2017. Yes. It's not upcoming. It's already published and available for purchase. So please forgive me on that. Okay. So let's get into some more information that you found out concerning how slavery impacted gynecology.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other things that you found out that just blew your mind?
I think the kinds of ways that so many, I call them atrocities, these abuses that happen on, and I look at black women. That's not to say that black men didn't go through this, because they certainly did. It's just I focus on gynecology,
okay.
So I focused on women exclusively. But I think what was just so disappointing for me, not necessarily shocking, but just disappointing, was the ways that black women's labor had been incentivized, commodified. So there was a price for everything. So if a black woman recently gave birth or gave birth to a stillborn, that she could become a wet nurse, and that becomes a labor category, for the person who owns her. The ways that sexual intercourse, so whether it's forced or it's a loving relationship between this enslaved woman and enslaved man, or rape between an overseer or some white man in the community or owner. I mean, those kinds of processes have a price attached, because the child born helps the engine of slavery be maintained. And so, the reproductive labor of black women was literally the engine that charged American slavery. So often, my students are shocked that some of the earliest legislation in colonial British America, and really all of the colonies, whether it was Dutch or French or Spanish, but in British colonial America, and what becomes the United States, the fact that white lawmakers were willing to overturn English law regarding race and gender. So, for instance, in England, it didn't matter who you were, the child always inherited the status of the father.
Okay.
In the colonies, in what becomes the United States, they overturned the law because so many white men were getting black enslaved women pregnant that all of a sudden these lawmakers recognized that if those quote-unquote mulatto children inherited the status of their fathers, they wouldn't be enslaved. Thus, these men wouldn't have property ownership. And so they then make the law partis sequitur venum, so it's a Latin term for inheritance of the womb. And so the children inherit the status of their enslaved mothers for life.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a lot to take in. And I'm sure during your research, there were moments you had to just push back and say, okay, this is a little heavy right now. And so what impact did it make on you as a researcher and as a woman of color? Even though we know you weren't born during that time, but to know that someone in your family line could have endured that treatment.
It makes me grateful for everything my ancestors, those who are directly in my life, those who have passed on that I only know their names or have an idea of who they were, all that they went through to be able to have someone who has a PhD. I'm sure when the first boats docked in those African captives, my family goes back to South Carolina to its colonial period. But when those African ancestors of mine docked, I'm sure they had no idea that 12, 13 generations, someone in their family could have a PhD and could write a book, when the teaching of black people was literally illegal. So those are the things that have really showed me the character and the strength of enslaved people, that they made it through something most of us couldn't imagine going through.
Now, during your research, what are some other advancements in gynecology that you found over the course of the centuries? You mentioned earlier about the speculum.
Yeah.
That was, I see on a picture on your
Of
book.
forceps. Yeah.
Okay. Now, those were used to pull the baby
To pull
out.
the baby out. I was actually born with forceps, right?
Oh, wow.
So this is the interesting thing. Most women, and it didn't matter who you were, white, black, Native American, it didn't matter. Most women around the world until really the late 19th century were born, because of the midwifery skills and nursing skills of other women, who were not formally trained. So by that I mean not going to school and that kind of thing. What happens though when white men begin to enter into this field, they begin to medicalize things that are seen as normal biological processes, because you have to think, if someone is having a normal birth, the doctor doesn't need to be called in. The doctor's only called in when there's a problem. And so all of a sudden pregnancy becomes a medical condition, and tools are then inserted. So instead of one's hand being inserted, you have forceps or knives that are being used to cut, the genital areas. And so gynecology is really about the surgical procedures surrounding women's health. So what happens is you get tools that are, in the words of 19th century folk, perfected. So the speculum, the interesting story about that, James Marion Sims. So the speculum always existed in formal medicine. What he does in his experimental treatment of these enslaved women, he takes 2 pewter spoons to open up the vaginal area of these enslaved women to view the cervix. Has an idea that if he fuses, an instrument like those 2 pewter spoons, it would be much easier. So once again, it's because the accessibility of black women who were enslaved that he could do this. He and some other doctors, but mainly this James Marion Sims, what they do is create a surgical repair of a very common condition called vesicovaginal fistula. And all that means is, a vesicle is a Latin word for bladder. Fistula just means holes. So when a woman had a really difficult and prolonged childbirthing session, it could last for 2-3 days. Exactly, sometimes more. No. And this is when the doctor needed to be called in. So you can imagine this mother is trying to expel the child out, because that's just normal, but it's stuck. And so what happens is, in the upper vaginal area, there's sloughing. So the fistula or hole is formed. Right above the upper vaginal area is the bladder. So although it's not deadly, there's incontinence that happens. And you can imagine being, fertile, a young woman, and you're literally, there's just urination that can't be stopped. If there's ripping in the other end, if you know what I mean, there's incontinence coming down that way too. So as an enslaved person, this brings down your value. People might love you, but they don't want you to be around because of the stench. You develop infections. And so it becomes costly for the slave owner to maintain these women, and it's very common. And so what Sims does for a 5-year period is experiments on these women to try to find a cure. And he eventually does that in 5 years. But it's an interesting process when we think about the removal of diseased ovaries and tumors and all of these things, even C-sections being essentially practiced and experimented on the bodies of black women.
Wow. I know medicine has come a long, long way since those times, and I'm sure some of those women face issues that women face now, such as ovarian cysts, cancer, cervical cancer, things of that nature. They just didn't know what to call it. Where women also experimented on, I know you said there was abdominal surgeries and things of that nature, because they lacked certain education, I guess lack of a better word, Did the doctors or even Dr. James perform unnecessary experimental surgeries just to remove organs?
Yes, sometimes, yes, because this is the thing. These people during this time are practicing, right? I mean, they're literally practicing because they're developing the surgeries. This is what I often tell people. I also do, there's a chapter dedicated to Irish immigrant women, because the same man, Dr. James Marion Sims, goes off to New York once he achieves fame for the vesicovaginal fistula surgery, and he starts to do the same work on white women primarily. And the poor white women in the North tended to be Irish immigrant women, particularly in Manhattan where his hospital was set up. But what's interesting is there was much more of an investment in protecting the fertility and the reproduction of enslaved women, because once again, these doctors, many of them were slave owners, and if you lease slaves to experiment on them, right, and you damage someone else's property, you can be sued, you can be imprisoned, you might have to pay a fine. And so there's a much more of an economic investment in protecting enslaved property than there was for even the poor Irish immigrant women. And so the interesting thing is he repairs the enslaved women's reproduction after that 5-year trial. One Irish woman that he experiments on for 6 years, he botches her surgery towards the end and just releases her, and she becomes homeless and dies on the street because there's not the investment in saving her reproduction because she's not property.
Oh, wow. All right, we're going to stop right there and take a break. Again, you're tuned into Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. I want to give a shout out to Ms. Maddie Warren and Dr. Jamarcus Ryder from NYC for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions or comments, give us a call or drop us a message on our Facebook live stream. We'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
How can you keep things from heating up between you and an old flame? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. Well, for a flame to exist, you have to have fuel. You know, those old pictures you've tucked away, the love letters you've saved, the texts you exchanged, the seemingly harmless flirtations on Facebook. These are the fuel that, given a spark, might just become a raging inferno. So, the first step to extinguish an old flame is to get rid of the fuel source. Throw out the reminders, get rid of the pictures of romantic embraces, and snuff out the old embers. Remember, your family first.
Submit your dad for the Omaha Steaks All-Pro Dad of the Year at omahasteaks.com/Dad of the Year.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on January 1st, 1977, originally serving Blytheville, Arkansas, and now serving Jonesboro, Blytheville, Osceola, Marion, and West Memphis, Arkansas. Today, the chapter continues to make an impact by focusing on Alpha's national community outreach initiatives such as My Brother's Keeper, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, Go to High School, Go to College, Project Alpha, Boy Scouts, and the March of Dimes. The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is committed to Alpha Alpha's mission of developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy to the community. More information about the Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is available at MOL Alphas on Facebook or via email at molalphas@gmail.com.
Tune in to Community Conversations every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. here on KLEK 102.5 FM. Join host Quabila Jones-Harden as she talks to people who are making a difference in the community and learn about the people and organizations that provide services to make Jonesboro a better place. Community Conversations every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. on KLEK 102.5 FM.
This portion of KLEK programming can be made possible by your business. Your support will help in educating, entertaining, and empowering the community by supporting local talent, serving the community you love, and providing information on issues you care about from a different perspective. Call 870-203-9951 or visit klekfm.org to learn how we can help connect you more with the community. Or visit us at 1411 Franklin Street. KLEK 102.5 Jonesboro. Educating, entertaining, and empowering the community.
Support for KLEK is brought to you by
Fullness of Joy Ministries, 2120 Thorn Street, Jonesboro, under the direction of Bishop Adrian Rogers and co-pastor Susan Rogers. www.fjministries.org.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
All right, welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Dr. Deirdre Cooper Owens from the University of New York, or CUNY, and we're discussing her book and upcoming lecture on medical bondage, race, gender, and the origins of American gynecology. And you can get your hands on this book, and we'll definitely let you know how for the end of the show. And also, we would love you to attend the lecture that is going on tonight or this evening at Arkansas State University, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the location of that. It is going to be, well, the words are kind of small here. Ooh. Okay, CLAC. Maybe Dr. Branch can help us with what building that's in. It's room 1041. I apologize, I don't know all the buildings on campus by their abbreviation, but it's today at 3:30 p.m. and I'll make sure to put that information in our Facebook live stream so that you all can have that. And this is being hosted, well, I say hosted by Department of History and Office of Diversity. So we want to thank them for inviting Dr. Owens to come and give this lecture today.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
All right, so tell us a little more about what you will also incorporate into your lecture concerning slavery and the origins of gynecology.
You know, excuse me, outside of just providing some context and also sharing some stories about some of the doctors and some of the early patients, what I'm hoping to really drive home, and typically this comes through really rich and robust Q&A after the talk.
Okay.
People are always wanting to know, how can I apply this knowledge from the past and put it in conversation with the present? And so for me, it's really important to have people advocate for themselves, to know that they're often their best advocates.
Yes,
but also to, particularly with medical college students, and I think this is really important, to challenge them to make sure the curriculum is accurate and precise.
Okay.
There have been a couple of studies over the, in fact, since 2014, so less than 5 years ago, where medical students are graduating from some top programs, University of Virginia, where I did my postdoc, as a matter of fact, and they're graduating with ideas that are very similar to these men I wrote about in the 19th century.
Wow.
With this belief that black people don't experience pain in the same ways that white people do because of some biological difference. And so how this plays out is Black patients are not receiving the kinds of pain relief medications that white patients receive, even for, verified painful conditions like kidney stones. And so these are some of the ways Black women are still giving birth to low-weight babies, dying in higher numbers, and this cuts across class. And so these are some of the things that, I would hope that, once again, all of us invested in making sure each person has good health and good medical care, can at least try to change.
Wow, that is very interesting. Mm-hmm. And reflecting on when you talked about how women of color, more specifically African American women, are giving birth to low-weight babies. I've had this discussion with representatives from March of Dimes. They talk about how there's such a disparity when it comes to medical care. I know a big part of it is the woman's responsibility of getting to the doctor, making sure she gets the care, but the quality of care is often lacking as well. It's depending on your economic status, your residence, where you reside, rural versus urban versus, metropolitan area. So there's all those different factors that play into the quality of care that someone receives.
Right. It's important. This was probably about 2.5-3 weeks ago. I was at a conference at Rice University in Houston, and a dear colleague of mine, she and I went to, I think it was the 5th Ward, and met with a midwife there. And, we were having a conversation around this about the level of care, because a part of it is often these women need to lose weight. They don't need to eat salty foods or sugary foods. And then I'm saying, as if this isn't an American issue.
Wow.
White pregnant women are also, eating salty foods and sugary foods. It's a part of the American diet. Most American women are considered medically overweight, and yet their babies aren't dying, and their babies aren't being born at low birth weights. So it has to be something other than, right, hypertension or diabetes. And I'm not saying that those are not important. I'm not saying that we don't give attention to that. But if it's affecting Black women and white women, and we often too forget about Native American women who are also, having the same kinds of numbers as Black women, if it's affecting these groups in particular ways that are morbid, then it is, I think what you said, it is connected to the kinds of care people are receiving because of the bodies that they're housed in.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I want to thank Dr. Branch for posting a link. She says Serena Williams talks about that as well. And the article is titled, What Serena Williams' Scary Childbirth Story Says About Medical Treatment of Black Women.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to slowly recognize or witness a rise in midwives and doulas coming back on the scene. Do you feel that because of the knowledge, not that it's so newfound, but more people are having an awakening to the knowledge of the harsh medical procedures that may be done during pregnancy, childbirth? Do you feel that some women may now start to gravitate back towards not necessarily in-home births, but having a midwife or a doula?
Yeah, it's growing. So it's it's a double-edged sword. It's growing for a lot of women, particularly those who become enraged at the stats. I think, like many of us do. In fact, just in my own circle, I have 3 very dear friends who are doulas. 2 are professors. One is a sorority sister of mine who's into holistic health. And so they realized that they needed to be advocates for women who might not have people advocating for them.
Okay.
So I do think a part of it is a kind of outrage at what's happening, the crisis that's affecting Black women across the board. The other thing is, I think that there is a slight acceptance of the integration of more holistic methods with formal medicine, that they actually can work together. Okay. There's still a divide. That's most certain. There's still a need for women of color to enter into midwifery, to train to become doulas. And so it was really great for me when I visited El Paso a month ago to be able to see so many Mexican and indigenous women at the talk, who were like, hey, we're midwives, we're reading the book. This helps us because we saw some of the same things happening in our communities not that long ago. So there's I think a new interest in reproductive health and justice from members of the community, although it's it's an old thing. It's been with us for a long time, but people are becoming more aware because you had someone like a Serena Williams. Even in the afterword of my book, I relay some of my own treatments by medical professionals when I sought out fertility treatments, and the ways in which I wasn't given pain medication, and it was really painful, and so all of the factors of my life, having a PhD or being married or being considered professional or middle class, that didn't matter when I was treated in the same ways that some of the women that I wrote about, how they were treated in terms of these ideas about pain management. Excuse me.
And I'm sure that makes you even more passionate. It increases your drive to reach as many of those that are studying medicine, specifically gynecology, obstetrician,
obstetrics, yep.
Obstetrics. I'm sure it fuels you to, okay, let's learn first. Let's learn our history, the accurate history, and now let's apply that to today.
Yes.
How can we continue to make advances in the treatment of women? I'm just gonna say women, period. Women of color, but women, period.
Yeah.
How can we? I don't want to say take away the medical aspect, because in some cases that's needed.
Yeah.
There are some babies that unfortunately develop birth defects in the womb, so of course they're going to need a little more help, a little more assistance, care. But I feel there are some procedures that are unnecessarily done. When I had my child, I had a C-section, and it wasn't even discussed, whether I was going to be allowed to progress naturally. It was, okay, well, your baby's this size, and I was a certain size, and so we're going to do a C-section. It was just, that was it. And I accepted it because I was young. Speaking of that, do you feel, through your research and the talks you've had and people you've encountered, the younger the mother is, the less informed she may be, or the less likely she is to speak up and speak out about the care she receives?
Yeah, it's yes and no. So it depends sometimes. I know some young mothers who advocate for themselves. They are bold in doing so. I tend to think that because of the way that we regard doctors in this country in particular, doctors can't be questioned. That's kind of the way that we're socialized, right? And people are unfamiliar with the terminology and some of the jargon that's being used, and so you don't feel that you are sufficiently educated, to be able to engage with this person who is the professional. And so what I'm saying is we all speak the same language. Even if you don't, there are ways that you can have someone help you translate, what you want to say or what you want to ask. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. And sometimes it is just you don't know. So when I went through my cervical dilation, I'd never been pregnant, so I had only read about that. I didn't know what that actual what that procedure entailed if you weren't pregnant. And so you enter into something with your own ignorance, and I thought I asked all the questions. Right? So sometimes you're just not going to know. But what I would tell people is just access a doula, go to wherever you are, see, even if it's online, go to online support groups, just present your scenario, your questions. You'd be surprised at some of the information that you can get. The other thing is, for me, I am partnering up with a lot of groups and individuals where we're trying to change some of the medical curricula, because that's really important, and help to develop more medical humanities programs in medical schools. So what was really surprising for me after I wrote the book and speaking to journalists and various other professionals was learning that out of all of the surgical specialties, gynecologists receive less surgical training than every other doctor. So that means on average a gynecological surgeon only receives 1 to 3 years of surgical training. The ear, nose, and throat doctor receives more. The podiatrist receives more. Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, here you have a person who works exclusively on a woman, a female population or on women, and they receive less surgical training. So these are things that most of us don't know that we need to advocate for. So if we're writing accurate histories, we also need to make sure that all of our surgeons are receiving the same kind of training when they're operating on people, and gynecologists receive less than everybody else.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of scary because they have access to vital organs when they're cutting you up. It's like just to do hysterectomy, cyst removal, ovary, just tie your fallopian tubes, get your tubes tied. I know that there has been a lot of advancements. There's a Da Vinci method that's a little less invasive and requires, less healing time, but still, there's some things that have to be done to. Anyway, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to definitely do more research and ask more questions. I'm the type now, because I've dealt with the condition, I have a notebook, and if I have questions before I go to the doctor, I write all my stuff down and, take it with me. And I would love to see more. I'm going to say everybody, not just women, men and women. Write your questions down. Be prepared, because sometimes some places you go, some doctors, like they schedule, or they don't schedule, whoever does their scheduling schedules their patients so tightly together that you may get 5 minutes with your doctor, and you deserve a little bit more time than that. So, especially when it's a serious medical condition.
Yeah, that's important.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right, you've tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Dr. Deirdre Cooper Owens from CUNY. I'm so sorry, my sinus is draining. We're talking about her book and lecture and some other topics surrounding medical bondage, race, gender, and the origins of American gynecology. Please give us a call if you have any questions, 870-277-1080, or drop us a message on our Facebook live stream. Just want to say thank you to everyone that is tuned in. Everybody's kind of quiet. They're just tuning. They're just listening. I do have an update on the building. It is the College of Liberal Arts and Communications, better known as the Humanities Building on campus. And so that is today at 3:30. And I think the room was 1041. The room number is 1041. So you don't want to miss today's lecture. We're just giving you just the tip of the iceberg of what she's going to dive into in her lecture. We definitely also would love for you, especially anyone that's in the medical field, or just have an interest, or someone, you need to get your hands on this book. You can never learn too much history.
That's right.
It's great to have this background knowledge, and because like you said, most colleges or universities are not teaching this in their courses. I want to talk about the people you've met, some of the feedback you've got. What has been some of the response?
Excuse me, it's been really good. And, I always joke. So when you're a professor and you're a tenure track professor and you're trying to get tenure, you have to, at least in my area, you have to write a book in order to get tenure as a historian. So there's kind of a dual purpose, right? You write it to get tenure, right, and have that job security. But also, for me, I wanted to write a book that was accessible beyond the academic community. So it really warms my heart when I have midwives, doctors, nursing professors, reproductive justice activists, all telling me how the book has impacted their lives. How, one friend of mine who is my best friend's, one of her very, very dear friends, she started an online reading group. I've had people invite me to speak to community groups. So it's been really well received, by people on the ground, and that's much more important for me, because that's what I want to do as a historian, is to be able to share this history, this message, present questions to people outside of the classroom doors. So even having a forum like KLEK, be able to sponsor a conversation with me about the book is just delightful. Like, I'm so pleased.
We're very grateful. We strive to provide information to our listeners and viewers that they may not get elsewhere. We try to provide a variety of topics that we feel will enrich their lives in some way, hopefully. Hopefully someone's listening that's either pregnant or considering getting pregnant, or know someone that's getting pregnant, or whatever the case may be, wherever they fall. They will have these conversations with them about how to now talk to their doctor more and be more proactive in the pregnancy and procedure.
Yes.
Leading up to the birth versus just taking everything at face value.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, of course, when you, on one hand, you get all these positive responses, and on the other hand, I'm sure you have faced some negativity and pushback from people who didn't want to accept or just feel like this information you're presenting is no.
Yeah, it's interesting. Excuse me. Now that the book is out, thankfully, I haven't received that yet.
Okay.
Because it's still relatively new. It just came out in November. But when I was giving talks, as I was writing and still doing research, I think sometimes medical professionals felt attacked. And it wasn't even what I was saying, but just, wait, you're attacking one of our pioneers. And so, once I started to, let them know I'm just revealing the past. It's not about attacking. People were much more open.
Okay. We're going to take another quick break. We want to give a shout out to Marsha Smith Apia. Okay. I don't know if I said her name right.
Apia. Hi, Marsha. I met her this Saturday.
Okay. She says, hi, Dr. Deirdre. All right. So thank you so much for that shout out. And we're going to be right back after these announcements. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Here's some common money mistakes and what you need to do to fix them. First, thoughtless spending. If you're not following a spending plan, also known as a budget, you're just not serious about improving your finances no matter what you say. Time to grow up and plan your spending. Not creating an emergency savings fund. You need at least 6 months of living expenses saved up as a cushion for unexpected setbacks, such as short-term unemployment or emergency repairs to your home or car. Determine an amount to save each month and have it automatically deposited into an account other than the one you use for regular household spending and expenses, becoming a real live ATM for your family and friends. There's nothing wrong with helping others, but if you lend money that should go towards your bills, debts, your emergency fund, and retirement savings, you're putting your own financial health at risk. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Hello, this is Quabila from Community Conversations. We at KLEK 102.5 FM strive every day to give to you. We strive to give you music that uplifts you. We strive to give you information to keep you informed about news, candidates, and the issues. We strive to give you a place where all voices can be heard. We strive to give you stories of people making a difference for 3 years and counting. We at KLEK have strived to give you our very best. We hope and pray that somehow, in some way, KLEK has helped to enrich your life. If so, please consider giving to us so that we may continue to give to you as your community radio station. KLEK is hosting our first annual pledge drive, March 15th through the 18th, from 6 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. each day. Community leaders and regular people just like you will tell their stories on how KLEK has helped them, and you will have an opportunity to call in and make your pledge of support. If you don't want to wait until March 15th, go to our website, www.klekfm.org. Click the donate button and make your donation now. All donations are tax deductible. Please consider giving to us so that we may give back to you.
Hello, I'm Officer Victoria Evans. I have always had a desire to help others in need and to be an example and role model to young women by encouraging them to never give up on their dreams. My dream was to become a police officer and to serve my community. In 2016, that dream became a reality, and it is the most rewarding experience of my life. Now I want to let you know about the same opportunity. The Jonesboro Police Department will conduct testing every month for patrol officers. Applications are available online at jonesboropolice.com or at the Police Department, 1001 South Caraway Road. The Jonesboro Police Department offers a competitive salary, health, and retirement benefits, top-of-the-line training, and most importantly, the chance to make a difference in the Jonesboro community. Join me in making Jonesboro a better place. The Jonesboro Police Department is an equal opportunity employer, and women and minorities are especially encouraged to apply. More information is available at 870-935-5657.
Hello, my name is Quabila. I am over 40 and trying to live my best life possible, but I have secondary lymphedema. It has truly altered my life. The most frustrating part of this is that it went undiagnosed and improperly treated. After enduring several surgeries, I was told in a nonchalant way that maybe losing weight will help. I urge you to listen to your body, do your research, and talk to your doctor. Don't waste time on getting the help you need now.
At 33, a wife of 17 years and 3 children, my name is Kara Maxwell. I was diagnosed with lymphedema after the treatment of breast cancer. Learning about the lymphedema diagnosis is on the rise in the medical community, although there is the least interest of research. Learning I had lymphedema inspired me to become an advocate. Be aware.
Celebrating Women's History Month on KLEK 102.5 FM. Here's your Women's History Moment with Dr. Sharice Jones-Branch.
This is Dr. Sharice Jones-Branch, and this is your Women's History Moment. Lottie Lee Holt Shackelford was born on April 30th, 1941 in Little Rock. She graduated from Horace Mann High School in 1958 and married Calvin Henry Shackelford Jr. and enrolled at Philander Smith College. She left school when her father died in 1963. Shackelford returned to Philander Smith and earned a bachelor's degree in business administration in 1979. She worked for the Urban League of Greater Little Rock, the Economic Opportunity Agency of Pulaski County, the Opportunities Industrialization Center, and the University of Arkansas for Medical Services. In 1974, she ran for a position on the board of directors for Little Rock. 4 years later, she was appointed to a vacant position for 2 years, and she ran for the seat in 1980 and won. In 1987, the board elected her the city's first female mayor, a position she held until 1991. Shackelford was active in the Democratic Party in the 1980s. She was deputy manager of Governor Bill Clinton's campaign for president in 1992 and a member of his transition team. In 1993, she was inducted into the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame. In 1998, she was one of the founders of the Women's Foundation of Arkansas, and in 2014, she headed the Women's Caucus of the Democratic National Committee. Shackelford continues to reside in Little Rock.
House of Details, located at 3217 Herb Street, Suite C, is a proud supporter of KLEK, offering detailing on any type of vehicle: waxing, clear coat protection, basic wash, hand wash, shampoo, interior cleaning, buffering, headlight restoration, pickup, delivery, and more. With a motto of, anything mean, we can clean. Details available via Quentin Bogard at 870-273-5187. House of Details on Facebook and houseofdetailsjonesboro.com.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
All right, welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Dr. Deirdre Cooper Owens from CUNY, the City University of New York, and we were talking about her book, Medical Bondage, Race, Gender, and the Origins of American Gynecology. She will also be conducting a lecture today in the quote-unquote humanities building. It's the College of Liberal Arts and Communications at 3:30 p.m. and the title is Medical Bondage, Slavery, and the Origins of American Gynecology. I hope that you all have really gotten something out of this discussion on today, and we just barely scratched the surface of what the book covers and what she will cover later in her lecture. I'm gonna let you have the last moments and share some more information that you would like people to take away. What do you want people to take away from the lecture?
Okay, so first, shameless plug, I'd like for them to take away a copy of Medical Bondage, which you can find on Amazon, just putting in my name, Deirdre Cooper Owens and Medical Bondage, and the link will show up. Or you can go to the University of Georgia Press's website to request the book, and you'll have free shipping for any purchase over $25. Okay. So that's number one. Excuse me, because I want the information to go out there and for people to be able to access it. Also, I think what's most important is, and I just keep saying this, understanding history in its fullness. And so that means you'll hear the uplifting stories of the enslaved. You will hear horrifying experiences. You'll also hear experiences where you see their humanity and their strength and their intelligence, and how, despite living in a world that resisted everything that they represented and that they were, they were still left standing. And so I think that's an important message to take away. I'm hoping today at the lecture that people will ask questions and feel free to share information. If there are practitioners there, I would love to be able to meet with you and exchange information. Like I said, I am partnering up with various activists, educators, doctors, professors, practitioners on the ground to be able to really change medical curriculum. So that's most important for me.
All right. So I'm going to copy this link and put it in our Facebook live stream so that people can go right to it and pick up their own copy. It is worth the read. I haven't gotten as deep into it, but I'm looking forward to it. Spring break is coming up next week, so I'll be doing some light reading. So we just can't thank you enough for joining us today. Again, 3:30 p.m. Arkansas State University in the Humanities Building, room 1041. Please go out and be a part of this lecture. There will be some opportunity to ask questions afterwards. For sure. Please go out. You never know what you're going to learn. You never know. I mean, don't look at it as becoming angry from the information you learn. Use it as a tool, as a stepping stone to help make things better in the medical community concerning women's health. Yes. All right. Would you like to give any shout outs? You have a minute left.
Yes, I would love to give a huge shout out to, I call her my unofficial PR branding manager, Dr. Sharice Jones Branch, who has been just a wonderful hostess this weekend, and also thanking her and the history department in Arkansas State University for extending the invitation for me to share my work on people who are dear to me, and that's the enslaved community, and being able to share their stories with a larger community outside of my classroom.
All right. Well, we thank you so very much, and we thank everybody for tuning in to KLEK 102.5 FM. Thank you for listening all day, every day to the music and education and entertainment, everything that we have to provide. Thank you for tuning in to Community Conversations. I couldn't do what I do without you, so we really appreciate you all so very much. And we hope that you have a great rest of your day. Make plans to make today great. It doesn't cost anything to be kind. So with that being said, have a blessed day.